The aliens' disrespect. It was a quiet day on Earth, but the hum of the human command center was anything but peaceful. Inside the towering building, the atmosphere was thick with tension. For weeks, the world's governments had been working together to prepare for what was coming. An alien force, far superior in technology, was heading toward Earth. But the humans were ready, or so they thought. The door to the command center slid open with a loud hiss. The room froze. All eyes turned to the figure that walked in. She was tall, towering over the humans around her, with silver skin that shimmered under the artificial lights. Her eyes glowed a brilliant shade of violet, and her body was adorned with intricate armor, engraved with symbols that none of the humans recognized. She was no ordinary alien. She was Commander Xylara, the leader of the invading force. Xylara walked with an air of absolute confidence, her steps echoing through the room. She wore a proud, almost mocking smile on her face. The humans, seated at their consoles, dared not move. They had heard rumors about this alien race and their condescending attitude toward weaker species. But now that they were face to face with her, the reality was far worse than they could have imagined. "You humans," Xylara's voice was smooth, but laced with a cold, almost playful arrogance. "I've been watching you from my ship for hours. Your so-called advanced technology is laughable." She looked around the room, taking in the monitors and the equipment that humans had worked tirelessly to build. "Do you really think you can defend your planet with this?" A ripple of unease spread through the command center. The humans exchanged nervous glances, but no one spoke. They all knew that Xylara's alien species had the firepower to wipe Earth off the map with a single strike. But what they didn't know was how far her arrogance would go. Xylara casually stepped forward, her heels clicking against the metal floor. She stopped in front of a massive holographic map that displayed the Earth's defense grid. "This," she said, tapping the map, "is all you have." Pathetic. She didn't even bother to hide the smirk on her face. Her eyes locked onto General Marcus, the human commander in charge of Earth's defense. He was a battle-hardened veteran who had fought in countless wars. But when Xylara turned her gaze on him, he felt a chill run down his spine. There was something terrifying about the way she looked at him, as though he was nothing more than an insect beneath her boot. "You," she said, addressing him directly. "You're the one leading this futile defense." How cute. Her voice was dripping with disdain. "Do you honestly believe you can stop me? Your planet will fall, and you'll be nothing more than a memory." General Marcus stood up slowly, his face hardening. He was no stranger to insults and threats. In fact, he had faced worse over the years. But something about the way Xylara spoke made his blood boil. This alien didn't just want to conquer Earth. She wanted to humiliate them first. "I don't know who you think you are," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "But I promise you this. We will fight back, and we will win." Xylara laughed, the sound cold and harsh. "Oh, really? How?" She turned away from him, gesturing to the rest of the room. With these toys, she reached out and flicked one of the human-made weapons off a nearby table. It clattered to the floor. "You think your primitive gadgets can stand against my fleet? How quaint." As she spoke, the tension in the room reached a breaking point. The human soldiers and officers stood motionless, watching her every move. But Marcus wasn't about to let her mock them any longer. He straightened his back, stepping forward to stand directly in front of her. "You might have the numbers," he said, his voice growing stronger. "But we have something you don't: the will to protect our planet, and the will to fight to the last man." Xylara turned back to him, her violet eyes narrowing. She leaned in, her face now just inches away from his. "How amusing," she purred. "You really think your will means anything to me? Your planet is weak. Your people are weak. You will bow to us, or you will perish." The humans in the room shifted uncomfortably. They had heard enough, but no one dared to challenge her. Xylara was a living embodiment of their worst fears, a being who saw them as nothing more than ants beneath her feet. She took a step back, clearly enjoying the discomfort she had caused. "I will give you one chance, General Marcus," she said, her voice cold and calculated. "Surrender now. Send your forces to stand down, and I will spare your people. Otherwise—" She let the sentence hang in the air, the threat clear without needing to be spoken. Marcus didn't flinch. He held her gaze with a quiet strength. "We'll never surrender," he said firmly. "This is our home. We fight for it." Scilarra's smile widened, her eyes flashing with amusement. "Very well," she said softly. "Prepare to witness your extinction." With those words, she turned on her heel and walked out of the room, leaving the humans to stew in their anger and fear. The door slid shut behind her, and for a moment, there was complete silence. The tension was unbearable, but it was also a fire that burned within each of them. As the doors closed, General Marcus turned to his officers. "Prepare for war," he ordered. "The real fight begins now." But what Scilarra didn't know was that the humans had something she could never understand, a burning desire to protect their home, no matter the odds. And soon, she would learn that underestimating humanity was a mistake she would not live to regret. The hidden weapon. The alien captain's words echoed in the command center long after she had left. Her arrogance, dripping with disdain, had ignited something deep inside the human commanders. What Scilarra didn't realize was that her mocking laughter had unknowingly sparked a chain of events that would soon change the course of this war. The humans, though outmatched in terms of technology and firepower, had something far more powerful than she could comprehend: their unity, resilience, and the ability to adapt. As General Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the holographic map of Earth's defense systems, he couldn't shake the feeling that the alien captain had underestimated them in the worst possible way. The weapon that Scilarra had so casually dismissed wasn't just a bluff. It was something far more dangerous, hidden deep beneath the surface of Earth, where no alien scanners could detect it. The weapon had been waiting for just the right moment. That moment was now. The weapon, known only to a select few, had been developed in secret by the world's greatest minds. It wasn't just any weapon. It was a weapon capable of shifting the balance of power in this fight. A single strike could disable the alien fleet's advanced technology, rendering their ships vulnerable. It wasn't the kind of weapon that would immediately destroy their enemies. It was far more subtle. But it was this weapon that would give humanity the edge, and they had prepared it for this very moment. At the same time, Scilarra and her fleet of alien warships were preparing to leave Earth's atmosphere. Her mocking tone still rang in her ears, and her confidence remained unwavering. She had expected resistance, of course, but what she didn't expect was a fight. She assumed the humans would surrender, fold under pressure, just as all the others had. But this time, the humans were different. They had no intention of yielding. As she stood on the bridge of her flagship, a massive ship that gleamed with metallic brilliance, Scilarra's mind began to wander. She thought of the countless worlds she had conquered, of the empires she had shattered. She was used to being the one in control, the one calling the shots. She had destroyed civilizations without breaking the sweat. And yet, here she was, facing the one species she had believed to be insignificant. How could they have gotten it so wrong? Back on Earth, Marcus had made his decision. It was time to activate the weapon. General Marcus, along with his team of elite officers, stood in a high-security underground facility. This facility, one of the most well-hidden on Earth, was buried beneath the mountains, far from the prying eyes of the alien scanners. Even if Scilarra's fleet had known of its existence, they would never have been able to locate it. Inside the facility, a massive machine hummed to life, its core pulsating with energy. It had taken years of work to build this weapon, and now the time had come to put it into action. The weapon was a highly advanced electromagnetic pulse generator designed to send a pulse through space and disable the systems of any technology within its reach. It was a gamble, a risky move, but it was humanity's best shot. As Marcus and his officers watched the monitors, the tension in the room was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity. The weapon was ready. The alien fleet was moments away from leaving Earth's orbit. They were about to make their move. "General," one of the officers said, his voice tight with anxiety. "The target area is locked. We're ready to fire when you give the word." Marcus stood tall, his face grim but resolute. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, and now it was here. "Fire the pulse," he ordered. With a swift motion, the officer pressed a button. A blinding flash of light filled the room as the pulse was sent into space. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the monitors came to life, showing the pulse's path toward the alien fleet. Far above Earth, the pulse began to spread through the vacuum of space, its energy rippling outward like a wave. It moved with incredible speed, traveling toward Solaris' fleet. The pulse, unlike anything the aliens had encountered, was invisible to their sensors. They had no way of detecting it until it was too late. As the pulse neared the alien ships, something incredible happened. The smooth, metallic surfaces of Solaris' fleet began to shimmer, their systems flickering as though they were caught in an unseen web. The lights aboard Solaris' flagship flickered, and a low hum filled the ship. Her bridge crew scrambled to make sense of what was happening. "Report," Scylla demanded, her voice sharp and filled with fury. We don't know, Commander," one of the officers stammered, his hands shaking as he tried to stabilize the ship's systems. "Something's interfering with our systems. Our shields are down, and the communication array is failing." Scylla's eyes widened in disbelief. The aliens had never faced anything like this before. Their ships, known for their near-impenetrable technology, were being rendered helpless. Panic began to ripple through the ranks. The once invincible fleet was now crippled. "Impossible," Scylla snarled. "What kind of technology is this? What have the humans done?" Back on Earth, Marcus watched the chaos unfold through the live feed. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He knew this was only the beginning. The alien fleet was not yet defeated, but their prideful arrogance had been shattered. They were no longer the unstoppable force they had once believed themselves to be. For a brief moment, the human commanders allowed themselves a quiet victory. The weapon had worked. They had successfully crippled the alien fleet's defenses, but they knew it wasn't over. The battle had just begun. In space, Scylla, now seething with rage, tried to regain control of her fleet, but the damage was done. The humans had shown they weren't as helpless as she had thought. And soon, she would learn that underestimating them would cost her far more than she could ever imagine. As the pulse continued to ripple through space, Earth's defenders braced themselves. The real fight was just starting, and the aliens would soon learn that humanity's will to survive was not something they could easily crush. Shockwave of power. The alien fleet, once proud and seemingly unstoppable, now floated in disarray above Earth. The electromagnetic pulse had struck with stunning precision, knocking the fleet's advanced technology into chaos. For the first time since Scylla had arrived, the once certain outcome of the invasion had shifted. The massive ships that once glimmered with metallic brilliance now looked vulnerable, like paper tigers with their teeth knocked out. Aboard Scylla's flagship, the alien command center buzzed with confusion. Sparks flew from the control panels as her crew frantically attempted to regain control. The hum of malfunctioning systems filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The alien captain stood frozen, her gaze fixed on the flickering displays before her. She had never imagined such a possibility. No one had ever dared to challenge her authority like this before. "Status report," she demanded, her voice icy, but laced with a hint of panic. Her second in command, a nervous-looking alien officer, quickly input commands into the control panel. He swallowed hard before replying. "Captain, our shields are down. Communication systems are completely disrupted. We can't re-establish contact with the other ships. We're flying blind." Scylla's eyes narrowed. The humans had done something she never thought possible. They had crippled her fleet. Her mind raced, trying to come up with a solution. But all around her, the ship was in chaos. The alien ship, once an impenetrable fortress, now felt fragile and vulnerable. "This is not possible," she hissed, her hands gripping the armrest of her command chair. "There must be something more. Get me a direct feed from the fleet. I want to know what's happening out there." Her officers scrambled to comply, but their faces were filled with unease. As much as they tried, nothing seemed to work. The alien technology they had relied on for so long, the technology that had brought them victory after victory, was failing them. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human commanders watched with growing anticipation as the alien fleet began to falter. General Marcus stood in front of the large holographic display in the command center, his eyes fixed on the live feed of the fleet's disarray. His team remained eerily quiet as the once-feared invaders stumbled. There was a quiet triumph in the air, but Marcus knew better than to celebrate just yet. This was just the first wave. The pulse had done its damage. But the aliens were not defeated. "We've only given them a taste of our strength," Marcus said, his voice calm yet firm. "We need to keep them on the defensive. Now is not the time to back down. Prepare for the next move." The officers nodded in unison, setting to work. Marcus turned to one of his most trusted advisors, a brilliant tactician named Lieutenant Rivera. "I want a full analysis of their fleet. Find their weak spots and exploit them. We don't know how long their systems will stay down, so we need to act quickly." Rivera, ever diligent, immediately began tapping commands into the console. "Already on it, sir. If their communication systems are down, we may be able to take advantage of their confusion. We can disrupt their coordination further if we strike now." Marcus watched the screen with intensity as the alien ships continued to float, sluggish and uncoordinated, in the Earth's orbit. Some were trying to regain power, but others were simply drifting in space, helpless. There was something unsettling about how fast their dominance had crumbled. Above Earth, the aliens were still reeling. Despite the damage, Scilara had not given up. Her pride burned too hot for her to accept defeat. She stood in the center of the command bridge, eyes scanning the wreckage around her. Despite the chaos, the determination in her gaze was clear. "Get the propulsion systems back online," she barked. "We will not be beaten by these humans. We are the superior force." But as she spoke, another shockwave hit, this time from Earth itself. On the ground, Marcus's strategy had been set into motion. With the aliens still recovering from the pulse, the human military launched a series of high-powered satellite lasers. These satellites, designed to deploy in secret under the guise of Earth's scientific projects, now unleashed their firepower upon the vulnerable alien ships. The lasers, previously undetected by the alien fleet, tore through the ship's outer hulls, leaving deep gouges and creating an even bigger wave of chaos. The alien officers on Scilaris' flagship stumbled as their ship shuddered once again. "Another hit, Captain," one of them cried, panic creeping into his voice. "Our structural integrity is compromised. We can't hold much longer." Scilaris' chest heaved as she clenched her fists. Her fleet, her pride, was disintegrating before her eyes. "Counterattack," she ordered, her voice more desperate than before. "We need to regroup and counterattack immediately." But the damage was already done. Scilaris' flagship, the jewel of the alien fleet, was now a shadow of its former glory. It had once been a symbol of invincibility, capable of decimating entire civilizations with ease. Now it was wounded, vulnerable, and caught in the deadly grip of the humans' unexpected power. The human forces didn't stop. They launched wave after wave of precise strikes, each one targeting specific weak points in the alien ships. The once mighty invaders were now on the defensive, scrambling to keep their fleets intact. The human resistance, though small, had just thrown the first punch, and it was a powerful one. Scilara stood at the center of the chaos, her pride burning with humiliation. The tables had turned so quickly, and she had no idea how to recover. The humans, it seemed, were not as weak as she had thought. And now she was on the edge of a complete defeat. This cannot be happening. Scifi muttered under her breath, her hands gripping the control panel as though it could somehow stabilize the crumbling ship. This was supposed to be an easy victory. But deep down, she knew that humanity had just shown her something that no one had ever dared to reveal. The humans had the ability to fight back, to stand up in the face of overwhelming odds, and they were far more dangerous than she had given them credit for. The shockwaves of power, the pulse, the satellites, and the relentless strikes were only just beginning, and with each passing second, Skylara's worst nightmare was becoming more of a reality. Humanity would not go down quietly, and she was about to learn the full extent of their determination. The tables turn. The alien fleet, once a symbol of dominance, was now reeling in the wake of humanity's unexpected counterattack. Skylara's pride, once unshakable, had been dealt a blow that no one could have predicted. Her once glorious flagship drifted in space, vulnerable and battered, surrounded by the wreckage of the other alien ships. The pulse had done its damage. The satellite lasers had struck with deadly precision. And now, humanity was preparing to launch its next wave of strikes. Scylla stood in the command center of her flagship, her violet eyes narrowed in rage. She had never been so humiliated. Never had she faced such a force that had the audacity to stand against her. Her ship, once invincible, now flickered with unstable energy. The systems were failing, and the alien officers who had once followed her commands without question were now whispering amongst themselves, filled with doubt. "Captain, we need to retreat." One of her officers spoke up, his voice trembling. "Our shields are down, and our weapons are not responding. We are sitting ducks. The humans have found our weakness." Scylla whirled around to face him, her eyes burning with fury. "Retreat? Do you think I would leave now? After everything we've worked for?" Her voice was cold and sharp, a reflection of the seething rage inside her. "No, we fight. We push forward. I refuse to allow these insignificant creatures to think they have bested us." Her officers exchanged uneasy glances. They knew better than to challenge her, but deep down, they were starting to lose faith in her leadership. The truth was undeniable. The humans had taken them by surprise, and now the once unassailable alien fleet was struggling to stay afloat. Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Marcus was watching the unfolding events with a steady gaze. The pulse had crippled the alien fleet, and now their systems were in disarray. The time for hesitation had passed. It was time to push the advantage. "Lieutenant Rivera," Marcus said, turning to his trusted advisor, "how long until the next strike?" "Less than 5 minutes, sir," Rivera replied, tapping rapidly on his console. "We have a clear window to hit them again. The alien fleet is still disoriented, and their defenses are down. If we act now, we can finish what we started." Marcus nodded, his face grim but determined. "Prepare the secondary laser array. Target their propulsion systems. We need to ensure they can't escape. We hit them hard again, and we take away their only hope of retreat." The plan was set into motion. The satellites had done their job, crippling the alien fleet's shields and systems, but now it was time for humanity to land the final blow. As the human forces prepared, Scylla was still stubbornly clinging to the belief that her fleet could recover, that the tide could be turned back in her favor. She couldn't accept that she had been so thoroughly outplayed by a species she had once dismissed as weak. On her flagship, Scylla stood motionless, her mind racing. She couldn't help but feel the weight of her pride dragging her down. The humans had fought back with more force and strategy than she had ever imagined. But what hurt more than anything was the realization that her arrogance had blinded her to their potential. "Captain," another officer called out, his voice filled with a note of urgency, "we've lost communications with the rest of the fleet. They're scattered. We have no way to coordinate with them. We're isolated." Scylla's eyes narrowed. This was the moment. She had been pushed to the edge, but there was one card left to play. If the humans wanted a fight, they would get it. She slammed her fist on the command console, her voice a growl of pure rage. Prepare the weapon. If we cannot win through conventional means, we'll make sure they never forget us. If we fall, they fall with us." The alien officers, hesitant but afraid to defy her, quickly began working to activate the secret weapon Scifi had brought with her. This weapon was not just any devastating device. It was a last resort measure, a tool that would take everything down with them. If the alien fleet was going to be defeated, then the humans would not walk away from this battle unscathed. Back on Earth, Marcus was unaware of the alien captain's desperate move. The human forces were already launching their next wave. The satellites were realigned, and the secondary laser array was fired with deadly accuracy. The beams sliced through space, aimed directly at the alien flagship's propulsion systems. As the beams hit their mark, the alien flagship buckled, the engines exploding in a dazzling burst of light. The ship shuddered violently, and for a moment, it seemed as though the mighty vessel might finally be defeated. Scifi watched helplessly as her ship's systems crashed, but she refused to give in. Her lips curled into a tight smile. "Let them believe they've won," she muttered to herself. "They have no idea what's coming." The alien weapon, still in the process of charging, was ready. With one last command, Scifi ordered her officers to fire it. A massive burst of energy shot out of her flagship, aimed directly at the Earth. The weapon wasn't meant to destroy the planet, but to destabilize its core, triggering earthquakes, massive tsunamis, and a chain reaction that could destroy everything the humans had fought to protect. But as the weapon powered up, the unexpected happened. Marcus had anticipated a final retaliation from the aliens. The pulse had already crippled their systems, and now, with their weapon charging, the human forces had one final trick up their sleeve: deploy countermeasures. Marcus barked as he watched the weapon's energy levels spike on the screen. In the nick of time, humanity's hidden defense system, an electromagnetic shield built to neutralize hostile energy, activated. The shield absorbed the energy from the alien weapon, rendering it useless before it could cause any real damage. Scifi's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? Impossible!" She screamed in fury. Her final weapon, the one that had been her ace in the hole, was now useless. The aliens were finished. Their last-ditch effort had failed. The humans had thought of everything. The tables had well and truly turned. General Marcus stood tall, watching the alien fleet struggle in the aftermath of the failed attack. "This is the end for them," he said, his voice steady. "They'll never recover from this. Earth will stand strong." Scifi, her face a mask of anger and disbelief, watched as her fleet, once invincible, drifted helplessly in space. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned the tables. The alien invaders had underestimated Earth, and now they would pay the price. A show of human strength. Scifi's once mighty fleet lay scattered in the vast expanse of space, broken and vulnerable. Her flagship, a symbol of the invincible alien power that had swept across countless worlds, now floated as little more than a crippled relic. The pulse from the human's hidden weapon had shattered her systems, and the second wave of laser strikes had crippled her propulsion systems. It was a disaster. The pride she had carried from one conquest to the next, conquering civilizations without so much as breaking a sweat, had been thoroughly shattered. Scifi's once unwavering confidence now teetered dangerously close to full-blown panic. As she stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring at the disarray around her, it became clear. The tables had turned. The humans had fought back, and they had done so with a strength and cunning that Scifi had not anticipated. The stakes had shifted, and she was no longer the predator. She was the prey. The captain of the flagship slammed her fist into the armrest of her command chair, her face twisted in frustration. "What happened?" she demanded, her voice low but seething. How could they have anticipated our every move? How could their defenses have been so precise? Her officers, now visibly shaken, struggled to respond. They knew the truth. The humans had outplayed them. They were not just defending their planet. They were fighting with everything they had, with an intensity that Scifi had never encountered. And that was a threat Scifi did not know how to deal with. "We're still alive, Captain," one of her officers finally said, his voice trembling. "We can regroup. Our fleet is damaged, but we still have ships. We still have firepower." Scifi shook her head, her eyes cold and hard. "No, we will not retreat. If we retreat now, we'll never be able to return. They'll finish us off. We have one final option, one last chance to show them that we are not to be trifled with." The officer hesitated. "What do you mean, Captain?" Scifi's eyes gleamed as she spoke. "I've prepared a contingency plan for situations like this. We will use the last of our reserves. We will make them regret ever challenging us. If we cannot destroy them, we will force them to bow before us. The humans think they've won. Let's show them just how wrong they are." Back on Earth, General Marcus watched the alien fleet through the surveillance screens with a steady eye. The humans had done everything right so far. The electromagnetic pulse had thrown the alien fleet into chaos. The satellite lasers had crippled their ships, and humanity had used every tool in its arsenal to turn the tide. But Marcus knew they couldn't afford to get complacent. "We can't let them recover," Marcus muttered to himself, his gaze fixed on the alien ships. "They're still dangerous. They'll fight to the end, no matter what." His officers nodded in agreement. "We've bought ourselves time, sir," Lieutenant Rivera said, tapping commands into the console. "But the alien fleet isn't done yet. If we let up, they'll regroup and come back even harder." Marcus clenched his jaw. "We finish this now. No more waiting. We're not letting them escape." He turned to his team. "Prepare for the next strike. Target their remaining ships, those that are still operational. We need to eliminate every last one. We take no chances." But just as the orders were being relayed, something unexpected happened. A burst of energy erupted from the alien fleet, signaling the activation of a powerful weapon. The sheer force of it was unlike anything the humans had seen before. It wasn't just a defensive measure. It was an offensive weapon, an all-out assault meant to cripple the humans' forces. The human satellites registered the sudden surge of energy, and the ground teams scrambled to analyze the data. The readings were off the charts. A massive wave of energy, far more concentrated than anything the aliens had used so far, was heading straight for Earth. "General," Rivera shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "They're launching a counterattack. Whatever this is, it's big." The entire command center fell silent as the humans braced for impact. Marcus' mind raced. Could they withstand it? The shields had already been stretched to their limits. The alien weapon was unlike anything they had encountered, but they couldn't afford to fail. "Not now. Deploy every defensive system we have," Marcus commanded, his voice unwavering. "Activate the planetary shields and brace for impact. We need to be ready for anything." The massive shield generators around the Earth's surface hummed to life, forming an impenetrable barrier between the planet and the alien weapon. The energy wave, now visible on the monitors, was heading toward them at an alarming speed. But then, as the wave of energy made its final approach, something unexpected happened. The human shields, designed to withstand the most powerful of enemy attacks, absorbed the energy without even a tremor. The wave, once a threat capable of wiping out everything in its path, seemed to dissipate before it could cause any real damage. The humans had done it again. Their preparation, their ingenuity, had turned the alien weapon into nothing more than a harmless flare. On the alien flagship, Scifi's face contorted in disbelief. The weapon had been her last resort. The humans had neutralized it without so much as a scratch. This is impossible," she screamed, slamming her hands against the control panel. "Why are they so strong? How do they keep winning?" Her officers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to respond. They were no longer looking at a fleet on the verge of victory. They were staring at a planet determined to defend itself. no matter the cost. Silara's eyes glinted with frustration, but underneath the fury was something else, a dawning realization that the humans had more power than she had ever imagined. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for something far greater, something that Silara could not understand, something that she had underestimated since the beginning. "All ships, retreat," Silara commanded, her voice full of venom. "We will live to fight another day. Get us out of here, now." But as her officers scrambled to obey, Silara could feel something deep inside her breaking. She had come to Earth to conquer, to show them that they were nothing in the face of her superior force. But now, after everything she had thrown at them, the humans had proven her wrong. She had failed. General Marcus watched the alien fleet begin to retreat. His expression was calm, but his heart was pounding with the rush of victory. They had done it. Earth had stood strong. The humans had fought with every ounce of their strength, and now the alien invaders would learn that humanity would never be an easy target. "Keep them on the run," Marcus ordered. "We're not letting them regroup. We push until they're gone." It wasn't over yet, but one thing was clear. The humans had shown their true strength, and the alien invaders would never forget it. The final blow. The alien fleet, battered and broken, continued its retreat, trying to escape the relentless human pursuit. Silara's flagship, once a symbol of invincibility, was now a shadow of its former self. Its hull was scared from the pulse and satellite laser strikes, and its systems were failing. The retreat was desperate, and Silara's pride was crumbling with every passing moment. But there was still one thing she could do. She could still make them pay. She could still deliver a final blow, even if it meant taking down herself and what was left of her fleet in the process. Silara stood in the command center, her face pale from the strain of the battle, but her eyes burned with determination. The humans had thrown everything they had at her, and they had shattered her arrogance. But that wasn't enough to make her surrender. There was still a weapon left in her arsenal, a last desperate attempt to destroy Earth before she retreated forever. "Prepare the Omega Strike," she commanded. Her voice was steady, filled with cold resolve. "We may be beaten, but they will remember the cost of their victory. Activate the weapon. Now." Her officers hesitated for a brief moment, their fear evident in their eyes. The Omega Strike was a weapon so destructive, so powerful, that it had only been used once before, in a far-off battle that had nearly wiped out an entire star system. Silara had kept it hidden, a trump card that she knew would be the last resort. But now, with everything falling apart around her, it was her only option. The officers quickly complied, knowing that their lives were on the line if they did not obey. They input the final codes, and the weapon powered up. A massive charge began to build in the heart of the flagship, its core glowing with an ominous energy. It was capable of sending a massive shockwave of destruction through space, one that could cripple Earth's very core, triggering earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and storms that would wipe out entire continents. The Omega Strike was a weapon of last resort, but it was also the deadliest weapon in the alien fleet's arsenal. The charge was almost complete. Silara's fingers hovered over the final button that would unleash the weapon. The command center was quiet, the tension palpable. She could feel the weight of her decision. She knew that once she pressed that button, there would be no turning back. But she also knew that if she didn't do this, she would be forever remembered as the alien commander who failed in the face of humanity. Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Marcus was following the retreat of the alien fleet with cold determination. The humans had fought with everything they had, but they couldn't afford to let up now. The aliens were retreating, but Marcus knew better than to believe that they were completely defeated. They had seen Silara's desperation before. She wasn't going to go down without a fight. "Sir," Lieutenant Rivera said, her voice tight with concern, "we're detecting unusual energy readings coming from the alien flagship. It looks like they're preparing something. Something big." Marcus stiffened. "What kind of weapon are they activating?" "It's hard to tell," Rivera replied, her fingers flying over the console. "But if the readings are accurate, it's an immense release of energy. It could be a planetary-scale weapon. We need to stop it now." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Prepare all available defenses. We need to neutralize that weapon before it fires. Activate the full planetary shields and ready the countermeasures. The aliens won't get away this time." As the human forces scrambled to prepare, Marcus watched the alien flagship on the monitor. His mind raced with the possibilities. Could the humans stop the Omega strike? The weapon was designed to be unstoppable, but they couldn't afford to back down now. Every second counted. On the alien flagship, Xylara's fingers hovered over the final command. Her eyes narrowed in concentration. The Omega strike was nearly ready to fire. It was her last chance to make Earth pay for the humiliation it had caused her. She pressed the button, and the weapon fired. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. A massive wave of energy shot out from the alien flagship, heading straight for Earth. The force of the blast was so immense that it seemed to warp the fabric of space itself. The entire human fleet watched in horror as the weapon raced toward the planet, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. It was the kind of weapon that could end everything humanity had fought for. But just as the energy wave neared Earth, something incredible happened. The human planetary shields, which had been activated just moments before, absorbed the first wave of energy without faltering. The shields glowed with a bright, shimmering light as the energy from the Omega strike collided with them, the force of the blast reverberating throughout the Earth. General Marcus watched in disbelief as the shield held firm. The Omega strike, one of the deadliest weapons in the galaxy, had been neutralized. The energy from the alien flagship fizzled out, its destructive power dissipating harmlessly into space. Xylara's final weapon, her last hope for victory, had been stopped. Xylara stood at the command console, her expression one of utter disbelief. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw the energy readings on her own ship flicker and die. The Omega strike had failed. The humans had stopped it. "No," Xylara whispered, the word barely audible. "No, this can't be happening." In the command center, her officers looked at each other, unable to comprehend the turn of events. Xylara's final weapon had been the only thing left that could have tipped the scales in her favor, and now it was gone. The humans had done it. They had withstood the attack, and they had won. Xylara's pride, her arrogance, her belief in her own invincibility had led her here, to this moment of utter failure. The realization hit her like a hammer. There was no more hope, no more fight left in her. Back on Earth, Marcus stood in the command center, his face grim but triumphant. The aliens had thrown everything they had at them, and still, Earth had prevailed. "We've won," he said quietly, the words feeling heavy in his chest. "The battle is over." But even as the humans celebrated, there was a sense of quiet reflection. The cost of victory had been high. Many lives had been lost on both sides, and the alien threat had not been destroyed entirely, only pushed back. But for now, Earth was safe, and humanity had proven something that could never be forgotten. They would not be conquered. Not today. A bitter lesson. The stars stretched out before them like an endless sea of twinkling lights, but for Xylara, they no longer held the same promise of conquest. The alien fleet was in disarray, and the once mighty invaders were now retreating into the void, their dreams of domination crumbling into dust. The final blow had been delivered. Humanity had not only survived, but had overcome them. The aliens had underestimated Earth, and the lesson was one they would never forget. Xylara stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes still burning with anger. Though the fire inside her had been tempered by a growing sense of defeat, she had fought with everything she had, throwing everything at Earth, yet every attack had been met with unexpected strength. The humans had displayed a resilience she had not anticipated, a resilience that had shattered her once unshakable belief in her own superiority. Her officers, silent in the background, moved like ghosts around her. They were no longer the proud warriors they had once been. The alien fleet had failed. And now, as their leader, Scifi was left with the bitter weight of their failure. Her desire for victory, her thirst for dominance, had led her to this moment, a moment of humiliating defeat. "Captain," one of her officers said hesitantly, his voice breaking the silence, "the fleet is retreating to the edge of the system. We've lost contact with several ships. Our defenses are failing. We can't go back to Earth. Not like this." Scifi turned to face him, her eyes cold. She could feel the weight of his words, but her pride refused to let her show any sign of weakness. "We've come this far," she said in a voice that barely masked her frustration. "We will retreat, but we will return. Earth may have won this battle, but they have not won the war." The officer nodded, but there was an unmistakable sadness in his eyes. They all knew the truth now. Earth had outsmarted them, outlasted them, and most importantly, had proven something that no other species in Scifi's experience had ever managed to do. They had proven that humanity could not be defeated by sheer force. Back on Earth, General Marcus stood on the command deck of their flagship, his eyes scanning the remaining alien ships that were now retreating into deep space. The battle had been hard-fought, and while they had emerged victorious, the weight of what had happened still hung heavily over him. It wasn't just the military strategy that had brought them this victory. It was something far more profound: the human spirit. He looked at his team, and for the first time in a long while, a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "We did it," he said simply, his voice filled with quiet pride. "We've held our ground, and we've shown the aliens what humanity is made of." The room erupted in cheers, but Marcus remained calm, his eyes still fixed on the screen that showed the alien fleet retreating. There was no joy in his heart, only a quiet understanding of what had been achieved. This wasn't a moment for celebration. It was a moment of reflection. "We've won," he said again, more to himself than anyone else. "But this war has changed everything. The galaxy is watching. We've shown the universe that Earth will not be an easy target, that we will fight for our home, no matter what." As the cheers died down, Marcus knew that the true battle was only just beginning. Earth had proven itself to be resilient, capable, and unyielding, but the alien invaders were not the only threat in the galaxy. There would be more, and humanity would need to be ready. But now, they knew they could face any challenge, together. Elsewhere, in a secure underground facility, a debriefing was taking place. The scientists and engineers who had been behind the development of the hidden weapons, the electromagnetic pulse system, and the satellite lasers gathered around a massive round table. Their work had been instrumental in turning the tide of the war, but now that the battle was over, the weight of what they had done was beginning to settle in. "Do you think we've really won?" Dr. Evelyn Hayes, a lead scientist, asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. "We've beaten one invasion, but there are so many more out there, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what the aliens are capable of." Her colleague, Dr. Jackson, nodded gravely. "Yes, we've won, but at what cost? The technology we've developed, it's powerful, but it's also dangerous. If other alien species discover what we've done, we could become a target again." Evelyn frowned. "But if we hadn't done it, we would have been destroyed. The alien fleet was relentless. The Omega strike was proof of that. We couldn't afford to let them win." Dr. Jackson sighed, his gaze distant. "I know, but we've opened Pandora's box. Now, Earth is on the map. We're a threat to others in the galaxy, and that means we need to be prepared. The next time we face an invasion, we won't be able to rely on the same tricks. The aliens will adapt, and they'll come back stronger." Evelyn looked out the window, her mind swirling with the implications. "Then we'll be ready. We'll keep pushing forward. We'll keep improving our technology, our defenses. Earth is worth fighting for." The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Humanity had won this battle, but the war for their survival was far from over. They had proven something that no alien force had ever expected. Earth was not to be underestimated. The human spirit, fueled by hope, resilience, and the drive to protect their home, had overcome the greatest challenge they had ever faced. But there was another truth that lingered in the shadows: the price of victory. It wasn't just the technology they had developed, or the alien invaders they had defeated. It was the realization that, from this point forward, Earth would never be the same. The galaxy had seen what humans were capable of, and with that attention came new threats, new challenges, and the certainty that humanity's place in the universe would forever be changed. Back in the command center, Marcus stood in silence, watching the retreating alien fleet. He didn't celebrate. He didn't feel the rush of victory that others might have expected. Instead, he felt something deeper, a quiet respect for the enemy they had fought, and a somber understanding that peace, if it was ever to come, would not last forever. Humanity had won today, but tomorrow was unknown, and the only thing he could be sure of was that Earth would continue to fight.